ARADJT Latu. We got to see some new Colts football today, and we've got lots to talk about. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right. Thanks for tuning in and making us your first post-game listen of the day. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's show is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs, which helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Just post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. What is up, party people? This is Jake Arthur and Zach Hicks of horseshoehuddle.com. I'm your resident credential media member reporting to you here live from Lucas Oil Stadium. Zach is the film crunchingest film guy in the world renowned. And we're here to talk to you guys today about the Colts 34-30 preseason week 1 loss to the Denver Broncos. I almost don't even care to mention like who won or lost or the score. But honestly, it was a kind of a high-scoring, entertaining preseason game, Zach. But yeah, we got to see the starters out there for 2 drives, offensive and defensive. The Colts got through all 5 quarterbacks. Some of the lower-level guys that we like to talk about with some regularity did some nice things too. But let's go ahead and talk about these starters because, of course, the Colts didn't really add a ton of newness to the team this offseason, not until really the draft. But it almost feels like a new team. Anthony Richardson is back out there. He's got Jonathan Taylor by his side. Everyone, for the most part, besides like Josh Downs, is healthy. So, Zach, what did you see out here? Let's, with the offense, they had 2 drives, not really fruitful. They just totaled 30 yards and possessed it for 3 minutes and 17 seconds on 7 plays. But, I mean, you got to see a little bit of action out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think we got a little bit more from the defense than we did from the offense in this one, so we can probably do most of the talk here on the defense. But for the offense, it felt like really just getting that rust off, especially for Anthony Richardson, kind of moving the legs a little bit. Wasn't the crispest day for Anthony Richardson, but it wasn't like a horrible day or anything like that. I mean, he had the one really errant pass to Kylan Granson where the two of them just were not on the same page. Yeah, the other one, the Kylan Granson on 3rd down, where he should have got there just a tick sooner. If he gets there just a tick sooner, you turn that into a 1st down. You continue that drive. Good throw to Mo Cox. And then the other one I believe it was to Michael Pittman Jr. was just the blitz was in his face. So it wasn't a bad day or anything like that. Just got his legs out there under him, got to see the football field again, and then got to call it a day. And that'll be all we get from him in preseason football action until the last preseason game, because I don't think they're going to play this next game because they have the joint practices. But it was just nice to see him out there. Nice to see Anthony and JT on the field together. Nice to see who the starters were and which guys were kind of subbed out of the game early and not put back in there with the backup. So you can kind of see a little bit of clarity when it came to those rotations. But outside of that, when it came to the offense, I don't think there was too much to write home about, because I don't want to say sloppy, but it wasn't crisp. It wasn't horrible, but it just wasn't super crisp. And you only got to see a couple snaps from them.
Yeah, I don't expect perfection or honestly even much productivity in the first preseason game. Like you said, it was just good to see those guys out there again. A couple handoffs between Anthony and Jonathan. I asked Anthony about that after the game, and like by now, luckily for them, it's like old hat because they've been doing it in practice. But to do it in a game, and like for him to acknowledge he had, some nerves going into this one, and he could just get that first like return performance at Lucas Oil out of the way. And now it's just kind of business as usual. Like you mentioned, probably not going to play next Saturday because they have the 2 joint practices with Arizona. But no, that was good to see. Like you mentioned, I feel like there's a little bit of clarity on some starting positions, or at least like primary rotational ones that I don't see changing drastically between now and the regular season. Like tight end, for example, Mo Cox, Kylan Granson, and Drew Ogletree being the top 3 feels really firm at this point. Jelani Woods is working his way up the depth chart. Will Mallory has kind of got to get out of his own injury way. But other than that, like the top 3 seem pretty settled. And then Jelani and will just kind of have to figure out where they fit in from there. But yeah, on the defensive side of the ball, just to preface going into the game, DeForest Buckner and Juju Brents, they were held out of practice Friday for rest. But Juju does have a little bit of a shoulder issue. However, if this would have been a real game today, he would have been out there starting. It's no concern. They were just resting him and being cautious. Same thing with Buckner. Buckner doesn't have any injury designation or anything like that. But they did not play today. In Buckner's spot, it was Taven Bryan at the 3 tech. And then in Juju's spot, it was Dallas Flowers, who we'll discuss more in our third segment among guys who maybe didn't have the strongest days in the world. But what do you think about the defense? Like you mentioned up top, they kind of had a little bit more productive day than the offense did.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they had the big play of the day when it came to starters on either side of the ball, and that was the interception by Kenny Moore. Now, they got a favorable bounce, obviously, from Samaje Perine bouncing the ball up in the air, and it was still a great play by Kenny to track it down and catch it and spin his body as he's catching it to make sure there's just no doubt that ball is going to hit the ground. That's just a guy who's done that for years now, knows what he's doing and made a veteran play. So it was great to see them come up with that big play right there. I mean, only 11 plays on defense, and they came away with a turnover. That's what you want to see from this defense this year. It doesn't matter if you give up a couple more yards, but as long as you're getting those turnovers, that's great to see. I think the front seven was fantastic in this. I mean, you can go Tyquan Lewis, I thought was phenomenal. Tyquan Lewis was living in the backfield.
Garrett Bowles thought so too.
Yeah. No, Tyquan Lewis, man, it was I thought he looked like the best player on the field when he was out there. Multiple QB hits and QB pressures, really good showing from him. Laiatu Latu, when he was getting out there with the starters, was super disruptive. I know Kwity Paye had a couple pressures. We only saw 10, 15, 20 snaps out of these guys on defense at most. I mean, I think Latu probably had 15 or something, but these guys were productive in that pass rush. They didn't get a sack, but they were forcing a lot of things out. And I think if this were a real regular season game where you have longer developing routes, not a lot of the quick hitters and just getting the ball out, I think you would have seen more sacks or more QB hits. But the defensive line looked good. Linebackers played well. Kenny got that pick. Jalen Jones had a pass breakup. I thought Nick Cross looked fine out there. So overall, I mean, I'm not too concerned about the defense off of this showing. Now, given this is the Denver Broncos, not the best offense in the world, Jarrett Stidham is starting quarterback. So we're not talking about, going against the best of the best here, but it was a very positive showing, I think. And I think the biggest thing you can take away is Laiatu Latu and Tyquan Lewis against Garrett Bowles, who's a pretty solid starting left tackle. Those two looked fantastic against him. I thought they made some really good things happen out there.
Yeah, Latu already getting double teamed at least a couple plays in a row. He hadn't even made his footprint in the NFL yet, but they right away knew that this guy was going to be a handful. And the defensive ends kind of like the tight ends that we mentioned. There's not really a set group of set starters. It's more of a group effort. So expect to see a lot of Latu, Kwity, even Dio, throw him in there. He didn't really get a ton of work because he's missed a lot of time during the preseason. But no, I'm really happy with what we saw from the front seven. Personnel wise, again, it was Nick Cross getting the start there, a free safety with Julian at strong. And yeah, I mean, personnel wise, probably not a lot of surprises. Again, I think Zaire Franklin is doing some positive things this summer in the passing game. He's not a big interception guy, probably never will be, but I feel like he is getting his hands into passing lanes more often, disrupting targets more often. What we saw out there today has become somewhat common during training camp too. So, we've said all offseason the Colts needed some help and pass defense in the middle of the field. And again, maybe that's something that's never going to be a big strong suit of Franklin's, but considering he's 100% snap guy, if he can be a little better against the pass like he's showing, then I think that'll be a pretty big deal for the Colts defense.
Yeah, and then another thing to mention too with the defense, I mean, we saw some good things out there from them and them getting that turnover out there too, but we got to remember they were missing two of their better players out there, DeForest Buckner and Juju Brents. And I think this defense looks a lot better or a lot different with those guys out there, because the drop off from DeForest Buckner to the guy who started in place of him is pretty massive.
Yeah.
And we even saw in this game the drop off from Juju Brents to the guy who started in place of him. might be pretty massive as well from what we saw in this game. So I think when you get those guys back out there and you get like a defensive coordinator that's actually trying, because again, preseason, you're calling a lot of shell stuff and just kind of chilling out there and letting guys kind of move their legs around. I do think that this defense can be much better even than what we saw today. But again, at the end of the day, it comes down to that defensive line. And what we saw from the defensive line, even without DeForest Buckner, was very positive to me. So I think just looking at the starting defense, I'm feeling pretty good.
Yeah, same here. All right, so coming up, we're going to talk about some guys whose stock is on the rise after they did some pretty nice things out here on the field. When you are hiring for your small business, you want to make sure that you find quality professionals who are actually right for the role that you have to offer. And that's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs, which has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board either. They actually help you hire professionals who you can't really find anywhere else, even people who aren't even looking for a new opportunity but are open to what you got to offer. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't even visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking at LinkedIn, then you're looking in the wrong place. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats nowadays that they don't even really have the time and resources to actually go through the entire hiring process. So LinkedIn's making it easier for you. They even just launched a new feature that helps you write job descriptions. It's just one reason that 2.5 million small businesses trust LinkedIn for their hiring. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
And thank you guys for making Locked On Colts your first listen today. And for your second listen, enjoy the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. Get daily insight into the best fantasy draft strategies so you can win your league this season. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Jake, we're going to talk about stock up, guys. And I think we're going to rename this section the Micah Abraham section because when you're thinking stock up in this game, holy crap, what a game by the rookie. I mean, that was fantastic from out there. I know it wasn't like super flashy in terms of like pass defense, but he had a huge tackle for a loss, I think, late in the third quarter. And then he obviously made the play of the game, which was the strip forced fumble that he returned for a touchdown. I didn't even see it on broadcast because they were interviewing Anthony Richardson when that fumble happened. So I thought somebody else hit the running back and the ball popped out to him. But then when they showed the replay, you see him come from behind, rip it out, take it and turn it up the other way for a touchdown. That was very Kenny Moore-like of him. And when you're competing for that backup slot corner spot and you're making a play like that happen, you're being that playmaker that position demands, that's how you make a roster right there. You know, this wasn't like I had some people commenting like, oh, this is like the Darius Rush touchdown last year where he still didn't make the roster when he had a preseason touchdown. But it's like, no, this was him making the play. Yeah. Darius Rush, it was a dude dropped a screen pass into his hands and then he returned it for a touchdown. This was Micah Abraham making a play. Like this was a regular run stop, comes from behind, rips it out, turns up the field for a touchdown. And for a guy that they drafted for his playmaking ability on defense, he showed it. In day one, this was the ultimate outlier for Chris Ballard in terms of size and athleticism. But he said, hey, we trust the ball skills. That translates. First preseason game, the ball skills show out there and he makes a huge play. So I wanted to start this segment just by shouting out Micah Abraham because that is what the preseason is for right there. For plays like that, fantastic play. And that's how you make a roster when it comes to preseason football.
Without question. And you, me, and Shane Steichen all had the same reaction of like, oh, wow, is he scooping it up and scoring? Only to later find that he's the one who forced the fumble. Because I asked Shane about that. By the way, it's always good when you can ask the really important people who are part of a team about a lower level guy. That means they're doing really good stuff. You know, we talked to Shane about it, Kenny Moore about it, even Anthony. Like when you're asking that high profile of guys about a play, you're turning heads. And so everyone was really impressed with that. And I can't even tell you, like internally, Shane has to have such strong feelings about that because again, it's not just a pick six or you scooped up the fumble and returned it. The fact that he stripped it and picked it up and ran it, that's a big deal. Like, I can't really undersell that. It's a huge deal. That is a playmaker. That's a huge playmaker stamp right there. And so that's going to be really good for his chances. there's 3 nickels on the roster, but the Colts might have to just bend and do it anyways. Or Mike Abraham gets his spot back from Chris Lamont. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll move on to some other guys. So we're not talking an entire episode about Mike Abraham. But I mean, him, Kenny Moore, and Chris Lamont, all slot defenders making plays today. Just saying.
Yeah, we had an interception, a fumble recovery, and then a fumble recovery and touchdown by the other one. So big day by the slot defenders in this one.
That's absolutely true. So the Colts got through all 5 quarterbacks, and I thought all 5 of them had some good things that they put out there. Obviously, we talked about Anthony. Joe's day was fine, I thought. I think his ball placement on short passes in particular, short rhythmic passes, is really good. Sam Ehlinger is just a preseason god up until he throws that interception, which, I mean, he was being hit at the time.
Yeah.
But Keaton Slovis I thought he threw with anticipation. He had, I forget who the receiver was up the left side.
Will Mallory.
Will Mallory, yep.
But
I thought that play was good. And then Jason Bean, after a terrible fumble that he lost, came back to lead a touchdown drive. And I thought that was the best passing I've seen from him all summer. Again, he doesn't get a lot of reps during practice, but he does get some occasionally. But out on a field against a different team, that's the best I've seen Bean all summer.
Yeah, no, for sure. Slovis and Bean, I thought had a good days out there, getting out there and ripping the ball around a little bit. Slovis just missed that touchdown in the back of the end zone, which I think would have given him a better day than Bean.
He was real late on that.
Yeah, but Bean got the touchdown pass in there. It looked really good. So it was really fun seeing those guys. And I think one of Bean or Slovis will be the practice squad quarterback for the Colts this offseason. Moving to running back, though, we have 2 running backs that are competing for that RB3 spot, Evan Hull and Tyler Goodson. And I don't know what the Colts are going to do with this one. They both look pretty good out there. I mean, Hull a little bit better as a pass catcher, Goodson a little bit better as a runner. Goodson punched one in for a touchdown. Hull redeemed all of Colts Nation by catching a 4th and short swing pass from an accurate throw from a quarterback. Evan Hull and Tyler Goodson, I don't know how to break down that battle right now, because from what I saw in this game, they look pretty even to me.
Yeah, they're just different players. I mean, they have some of the similar strengths, but they're just different players. I think it'll come down to who can you trust. If they had to start a game, who can you trust more? You know, like things like pass protection. And I don't know. I was impressed by Goodson. You know, I think he's very sudden at times. Like, he's very shifty. Hull has more behind his pads when it comes to short yardage stuff, though. So that'll be a fun one. I think we'll see a ton of both of those guys. Probably really the next 2 games, but probably in particular, especially with Trent Penix having a groin injury, probably see them a lot next Saturday. Will Mallory, that's a guy who you just wish he would stay healthy, because he catches everything, whether it's short, intermediate, downfield. Like, I love seeing Will Mallory out there play tight end, but you just got to stay healthy, man. And I think that's the only thing standing in the way of him and like a pretty big role as a tight end on the team.
Yeah, for sure. I thought he had a really good game. The really nice catch down the sideline, like you mentioned, had a couple other ones that were underneath as well. Will Mallory did pretty well. DJ Montgomery had a really nice big catch from Sam Ehlinger. I know he had that drop late, but DJ Montgomery, I thought, had some good moments in this one. Linebacker Austin, I want to say Agiake, or
I always say Agiaki just in my head, but I think the PA announcer in the press box said a jockey.
A jockey. Okay. So he had a good game, though. He looked really solid out there. I thought he separated himself from some of the other linebackers lower on the depth chart, especially with Jalen Carlisle out in this one. So I thought he had a really solid game. And then 2 pass rushers, Isaiah Land and Adetomi Adebore. I mean, those 2 were disruptive as hell in this game. Yeah. And Tommy, I mean, he was out there on special teams. He was doing the rundowns on the kick coverage. I know Joel Erickson was messaging me about that, because we always joke about putting him at gunner. Yeah. But they have him out there covering kicks. He had 2 QB hits in this game as well. Looks strong as an ox out there in the passing game. Yeah. Wish it would translate a little bit more to run defense, which we'll talk about in our final segment for sure. But Tommy and Isaiah Land, I think those are 2 guys that you keep on your bottom of your roster and you keep developing. And if there are games where, like, you know, guys are hurt in front of them, you have 2 solid guys who can come off the bench and pass rush. I'm really intrigued by the potential of those 2 players, and I think they can be productive sub pass rushers in this league for sure.
Yeah, I think it's big for Adetomi, because, you know, Laulu is a project. Like, I think he's probably a couple-year project for them. but you're still waiting for like an Eric Johnson to do something. And so when you're looking at the depth defensive tackles, like this was a good performance for him. It was very on brand for him. Like I saw him chasing down everything. He always seemed to be at the ball by the end of the play, whether it was on the sideline or what. So good performance by him, along with a jockey. I'll throw in Cam McGrone as well, had the forced fumble. So the two guys I can never tell apart, 58 and 59, who like wear the same exact things. Good days from those guys. But coming up, we'll talk about some of the guys who maybe have a little bit of things to work on. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything that you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, LED headlights, whatever it is, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. Plus, with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or it's your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts that you need at the prices that you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home some W's. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. All right, so we'll just go ahead and start out with a grand slam here. I think one that a lot of people have circled for guys who have some rebounding to do. Dallas Flowers sticks out pretty hard for me. So he had the 2 defensive pass interference penalties, which penalties will get you killed every time. Just look at Darrell Baker from last year in that Browns game. But he also played a part in something that I think a lot of people are probably going to point the finger at Nick Cross. So there was the early touchdown from Bo Nix to Marvin Mims, that short little out route, just like inside the 5-yard line. So we'll probably need to ask either Gus or the guys themselves, but it looked like Nick Cross identified what the Broncos offense was doing and was trying to switch off coverage with Dallas Flowers, but there was just a disconnect there. Flowers just may not have been picking up what they put down. So Cross was like, all right, I'm going to have to do it. And then was just a little late. It was too far away and wasn't able to get there in time. And there was the touchdown. So although Nick Cross is kind of a common dog pile at the moment, like it's, that you could probably throw that just as much on Flowers' plate for the day.
Yeah, so the Colts were in banjo coverage there. It's on the goal line, so communication is huge because any misstep on the 1-yard line like that, if they are throwing the ball, leads to a touchdown. Like we saw, Nick Cross was half a second late to getting there. But yeah, those 2 defenders were in banjo. You have to communicate because it depends really how you do banjo. If like, hey, the guy up in press, you're getting the first guy, which I think is what Flowers thought was, hey, you're up in press, you're getting the guy that you're pressing. And then Cross is just working over top of any rubs and getting on that. But sometimes the way that teams work banjo is guy up front gets first guy inside, guy back gets first guy outside, or vice versa. So it really comes down to how that communication was. And like we heard all last year from this defensive coaching staff, like we've heard throughout all of training camp, whoever's going to win these battles in the secondary, it comes down to communication. Who's talking to each other, who's figuring things out, who's making sure guys aren't going to be wide open, because any slight miscommunication can lead to a touchdown like we saw there. So I don't know who to pin that on exactly. In my head, I would say it's kind of on both guys for not communicating who's getting where there. And as a result, it led to the half second off, and Bo Nix threw a really great pass to Marvin Mims. But just aside from that play, I do think, Dallas Flowers is a guy we talked about a lot this offseason as a guy who could push for that cornerback 2 spot. Looked really good in his final game last year before he got hurt. And he just doesn't look confident out there. It just didn't look confident. I mean, you really saw it on the pass interference calls where it's like not getting his head around, grabbing guys because when they're coming out of breaks, like he doesn't trust himself yet out there. But even on some of these other ones where the Colts are like blitzing, and I think Venturi did a really good job mentioning it on the broadcast, but when the Colts are blitzing and the guy that you're covering is doing like a quick out or like a quick in or something, you got to drive on that. You're blitzing. The ball's coming out hot. The ball's coming out quick. You can't be sitting back on those being scared of a double move when they're blitzing. If you get beat by a double move when your defense is blitzing, that's not on you. That's on your blitz for not getting home. So you take that chance when you're a corner, when your team is blitzing, because you have to trust your blitz. So if you're not trusting the blitz and not trusting your own ability to crash downhill, that's a problem. So there were a couple plays like that from Flowers where it looked really concerning. And I think, the one thing that I really came away with was, Jalen Jones is absolutely cornerback 2 after this game. Maybe, again, it's preseason. It's hard to really put too much stock in one game, but that was just not the game you wanted to see from Dallas Flowers out there.
Yeah. So we'll go ahead and not beat a dead horse, so to speak. Let's go on to, a linebacker who maybe didn't have the greatest day, and it's a big bummer for me. Liam Anderson had a couple plays that weren't so great. He had one play where he took a poor angle to the runner, and it resulted, I believe, in a first down. And then he fall down in coverage on a deep play?
Yeah, it was a pick play, really good design by the Broncos. It was a little hook route by the receiver, and then the running back was running a wheel rubbing off that hook route. And Anderson was in man coverage, and he just got caught up on the hook route. So he ran into the design the offense threw at him, but he legit got knocked over by it, which led to the running back being wide open. A couple other poor plays, too, from Liam Anderson. I thought he was Trevor Denbo for a second out there, and I was like, why is Denbo playing linebacker?
Trevor would never.
Well, it's like similar numbers, and then they both are like the same size, too. Like, I didn't realize Anderson's kind of small out there, but in a game where, Ajake played really well, and some of the other linebackers, Cam McGrone had a really good game, and then Carlies, even though he wasn't in this game, like he's going to make the team. Like when you have that competition stepping up, like it's a tough showing for that there. Another guy that I wanted to mention, though, and the guy that it's kind of like the Dallas Flowers, where it's like a preseason battle we were talking about, but the Colts are trying to figure out who their swing tackle is going to be. I feel pretty comfortable saying it should be Matt Gonsalves after this game because, oh man, Blake Freeland, it looked like last year. It looked like the exact same player as last year, which, he can still get in the way at times of pass rushers, but we saw in the Sam Ehlinger interception, that was what Jonah Ellis or whoever Ellis that was rushing against him. I think it was Jonah Ellis, the rookie. And it was just an easy pass rush win for him where he hit Sam and Sam ended up throwing a pick. And that's a possession lost right there because your tackle couldn't hold up. And there were multiple other plays. Yeah. And there were just multiple other plays where he's just getting beat badly in pass pro. He still is dropping his head. He's still stopping his feet on contact. And he's getting beat around the corner with ease. And it's like, we have another tackle who is not having that issue on the other side, who they just took in the third round. So, for me personally, I'm feeling pretty good about Matt Gonsalves after this. I'm feeling good about Dalton Tucker, too, at right guard. We didn't mention him in the last segment, but he looked really good. But Blake Freeland, man, that was just a really brutal showing from him out there.
Do you think it's a matter of he can only play on the right side, or do you feel equally as poor whether it's right or left?
I still do maintain that the Colts set him back a little bit by making him jump back and forth so much as a rookie, because muscle memory, you have to switch your steps and your punches and everything is inverse as you keep moving back and forth. So maybe if he just exclusively plays at left tackle and doesn't do anything at right tackle anymore, maybe it's better, but oh man, let's hope the next game is better for him out there. Before we get out of here though, I did want to mention a couple other guys that caught my eyes for low lights. The backup defensive tackle situation, especially in the run game, is so putrid still. Like we need Raekwon Davis out there so bad because Taven Bryan, who got the start out there, getting driven off the ball. Adetomi, I think one-on-one, he's strong and sturdy, but he's just not a run stuffer when he's taking like double teams and stuff. Eric Johnson, it was bad out there. Jonah Lawalu has great energy and motor, but I don't think he has the technique down yet. But man, I'm sure you saw it from the box too, Jake. Like every run play the Broncos had outside of when Grover was out there, it was like they had 4 or 5 yards given to them in the trenches.
It looked a lot like last year. Yeah. You hate that Raekwon Davis plays such an important role in this for a guy who has taken 0 practice reps with them yet, but all we can do is pray. Hope that Tommy is a hit and that he keeps getting better and that Laulu maybe even shows enough that they want to sneak him onto the roster. Maybe. I don't know.
Is there a 350-pound man out there who just wants to sit in the middle of the Colts defense for him? Like
I'm willing to eat my way to that role.
I just I know they want to be a gap shooting, aggressive run defensive team where they, stop the run on the way to the passer and stuff. But like sometimes you just need that one tech or that zero tech who just doesn't move off the snap. Like, I don't care if you're getting penetration, just like don't get driven back. And I'm cool. Like,
you need a Keith trailer. That's what.
Yeah, like I'm tired of 290-pound Taven Bryan being the one tech, or Eric Johnson who's 290 or 300 pounds, and then Adetomi who's 280. Like these guys are getting knocked off the ball with ease. Like maybe we need to go get like a 340-pound guy. I know Raekwon Davis is supposed to be that guy, but like, come on, let's go back to old school football a little bit. Like. Let's get it out there.
Cut down weekend is going to be big for the Colts. I think they really have had their eyes open to the fact that some of the holes that we thought they had exist.
Hopefully. But that's all we have for today, guys. Don't worry. We'll have a lot of coverage on this game and obviously previewing the next game coming up this week. And then Jake will be out there at practice. When's the next practice, Jake? Is it Monday, Tuesday? Like what do they got?
No, so Wednesday and Thursday are the final two practices at Grand Park. They will both be with the Arizona Cardinals. And then training camp isn't technically over after that. They have one joint practice with the Bengals the next week, the Tuesday after. And then they have their preseason finale with the Bengals that Thursday. So 3 total training camp practices left.
Perfect. Let's go back in time, guys. I'll tell you on draft night that Marvin Harrison Jr. will be in Grand Park Central practicing on this Wednesday and Thursday, and you guys would have been pumped. Before we get out of here, I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Colts your first listen today. Now go listen to the Locked On Fantasy Football podcast. Get daily insight into the best fantasy draft strategy so you can win your league this season. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if you guys don't already, make sure you're following at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, at Zach Hicks 2, all on Twitter. Also subscribe to us on YouTube where we listen to your podcasts. We love your guys' ratings and reviews, and we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow afternoon.